Hi, this is MJ, and in today's tutorial I'm going to be showing you how to make a granny stitch bucket hat. I'll be showing you how to make the adult size in this tutorial, but the pattern includes baby to adult size. The yarn that I'm using is comfy worsted weight yarn. It is a number 4 weight, but I'm doubling it up so that it is a super bulky weight yarn. So the color I'll be using today is Parchment, and you'll need 3 balls for the adult size. I'm using the Dots crochet hooks from WECROCHET for this tutorial, and I will be using the 5.5 and the 6mm size. The set includes 2mm up to 6mm, and if you are working on one of the smaller sizes, I do have a tie for the baby toddler sizes just so that you can keep the hat on their head. So I have used a 5mm hook when I'm doing the tie, but if you're just working on the bigger sizes, then you'll just need these 2 hook sizes. So we'll start with our 6mm hook, and I'm going to make a magic ring. So wrap the yarn around your index finger 3 times. Take your hook, sliding it through, pull through, and we're going to chain 3. So I'm working from 2 balls at the same time. You can pull them from the center. And now I'm going to work 2 double crochet. And a chain 1. So we're going to be working clusters into the ring. I want 5 clusters in total, and a cluster is made up of 3 double crochet. So our chain 3 counts as our first double. So 3 clusters, chain 1, or 1 cluster and chain 1. So 3 double crochets make a cluster. So you want 5 in total. One, 2, 3, 4, so 1 more. And chain 1. So now we'll want to pull our ring tight. So I just like to push my work out of the way. You're going to take your tail, start pulling it. Only 2 loops will pull in. The other 2 loops won't be pulling. So take the ones that have started to pull, give them a tug. It's just going to pull the other loops tight, and then take your tail and pull it. So now you have a nice tight circle. Now if you have a different method that you prefer, go ahead and start your hat however you want. Now what I'm going to do is slip stitch across to my chain 1 space. So I am going to go through the first double crochet and slip stitch, the next double crochet and slip stitch, and the chain 1 space and slip stitch. So I've made 3 slip stitches across. So now we'll chain 3, which will count as our first double crochet here and throughout. I'll work 2 double crochet now to make a cluster, chain 1, and in that same chain 1 space, we're going to do another cluster. So for each chain 1 space, we're making 2 clusters so that we're going to increase from 5 clusters to 10 clusters. So we'll work our 3 double crochet and chain 1. So then we'll go over to the next chain 1 space, work 3 double crochet, chain 1, and 3 double crochet. Okay, and we're going to do that all the way around in each chain one space. So I'll chain one, and I'm going to slip stitch across to the chain one space again. So we're going to slip stitch in our first double, in the next, and in the chain one space. So 3 slip stitches across. I'm going to chain 3. I'm going to work 2 double crochets and chain 1. And this round we're going to work 1 cluster chain 1 in every chain 1 space around, so there won't be any increases for this round. So cluster, chain 1 in every chain 1 space. So once you get all the right way around, we'll chain 1 before joining, slip stitch across, chain 3, work 2 double crochet, chain 1. In our next chain 1 space, we're going to do an increase. So we're going to work 3 double crochet, chain 1, 3 double, sometimes when you're working with 2 strands, one of the strands can loosen up, so just try and make sure they look nice before moving on. So now we'll chain 1, and this will be our repeat pattern. So we'll do 1 in the next, and then 2 clusters in the next, 1 in the next, 2 in the next, all the way around. So we'll be increasing to 15 clusters from 10. So I'm going to complete that around, and then I'll meet you up. Okay, so this is what it should be looking like at this point. I've chained 1. We're going to slip stitch across to the chain 1 space. And this round we won't do any increases. So chain 3, 2 double crochet, chain 1, and a cluster chain 1 in every chain 1 space around. Oops. Okay, so I'm going to complete that around, working a total of 15 clusters. Okay, so at this point I'm going to measure it for you just so you can see if you're on track with your sizing. So mine is about 7 inches, and we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds. Okay, so it's measuring 7. It can be tricky with your stitches. It looks like it's about 1 1/4 if you go with your cluster chain 1. But I think it's easier when you're looking at it to measure it across just to make sure. And I'm not going overly tight with my stitches. I'm keeping them fairly loose. So if you're struggling, if you're too tight, you may need to go up to a hook size. Now 6 is the largest with the dots hooks, but there are 6.5 millimeters in lots of other brands of hooks. I'm just going to show you this here too. WeCrochet has a jumbo bright hook set now as well, and you get sizes from 2 millimeter all the way up to 10 millimeter with this hook set. I'm just going to show you these quickly. Oh, I have them. So they would go up. You could try a larger hook size. They're shaped a little bit differently. You get a little bit more of a point with the dots than the bright, but they do have that you can get all of these sizes now in one hook set. So that's also an option for you if you're looking at getting new hook sets and are looking for something that is affordable. So now I'll slip stitch across to our chain 1 space. I'm going to chain 3, and this round we need to add one more cluster. So for the adult size, we need a total of 16 clusters to get it up to the size that we want. So we need to add another one in. I'm going to do it at the end. You could add it at the start, but I'm going to add mine in the last stitch. So I'm going to go ahead and work my cluster chain 1 in each chain 1 space around, and I'm going to meet you up at the end for that increase. So I'm coming to the last chain 1 space, and we're going to do an increase. So I'm going to do a cluster, chain 1 and cluster, all in the same space. Chain 1, and we'll slip stitch across to the first chain 1 space. Chain 3. So now what we're going to do is another 5 rounds at 16 clusters. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 rounds. We need to do another 5. So you're going to have a total of 11 rounds of clusters. And then we're going to start into the next part of the pattern. So go ahead and work your 5 rounds. We're just doing cluster chain 1 in every chain 1 space. So no more increases are needed. So I'm going to go ahead and complete those rounds, and then I'm going to meet you back up for the next step. Okay, so once you finish, you're going to slip stitch just into our chain 3 to join. And I am going to measure it for you so you can see if your sizing is going to be correct. Now, another thing you could do for a large adult is you could add another cluster. If you find this a little too small for your head, so it is about 9.5 inches across. Now remember, this is going to stretch. So if you have a 22-inch head, this is going to stretch when it's on your head. You don't want the hat to be the actual same size as your head. You want it to be smaller. And if we measure it this way, it's about 6.25. So now what we're going to do is change over to the smaller hook. So the 5.5 millimeter. So I'll chain 1, and we're going to single crochet for every stitch and chain 1 space around. So we're going to single crochet in that space, the next stitch, the next stitch, and the chain 1 space. So a single crochet for every double crochet and the chain 1 space. Okay, so we're going to do that all the way around. Okay, so once you get all the way around, you're going to have 64 stitches, and I'm going to do a reverse slip stitch join. And doing this type of join is going to make the join a little less noticeable. So what you want to do is take your hook going from back to front through the stitch, but don't have your working yarn in behind the hook. You want to keep it to the front of the hook. So push your hook through. I just like to yarn under, pulling it through. I usually turn my hook to get it in position and then pull through and chain one. So now the next round, we're going to just work one in every stitch around again. So a total of 64 stitches. Okay, so another reverse slip stitch join. So I'm going to go back to front under the stitch, yarn under, pull through, turning my hook, and then pull through the loop on your hook. Chain one. Now we're going to do an increase, and this is what's going to give us that flare that you can see here. So I'm going to single crochet in the first stitch, 2 single crochet in the next, 1 in the next, and 2 in the next, 1 in the next, 2 in the next, and I'm going to repeat that all the way around. Okay, so I've worked all the way around. I have 96 stitches, and I'm going to reverse slip stitch to join. This is the only increases we're going to do. Chain one. So now I'm going to do another 6 rounds at 96 stitches. You could do a total of 10 rounds if you want. If you wanted, I'm going to have a total of 9. This is where you can kind of try it on and see. So make a bigger brim if you want a bigger brim, but I find it does cover your eyes a little bit more if you go bigger. Now, if you wanted to flip it up so that you can see a little bit better, you could always do that and do it a bit longer. You could also add more increases if you wanted it to flare out a bit more. But if you want to go with exactly the same as what I've shown you, go ahead and do another 6 rounds at 96 stitches. So we're just working 1 single crochet in every stitch around and doing those reverse slip stitch joins. Okay, so I'm on my 7th round and I'm just running out of yarn. So what I suggest, I have another part ball that I'm going to use, but you can work from the outside of the ball and the inside of the ball so you can keep going. So you don't need a lot of that third ball, but now if you make the large adult, you're going to use a little bit more. But I still don't feel like this is enough of a brim. You could try it on, and if you like just going with 6 rounds, you could eliminate that third ball, but I think that it looks nicer with a longer brim. So I'm going to keep going. And you can do your preferred joining method. You could do the thumb join, or you could do the magic knot, which is a little bit easier than the thumb join. But I could link my tips and tricks video for you below if you are interested in looking at some different joining techniques. I don't like it having a knot. That's the only thing with the knotting style. It will bump it up a little bit, but also the Russian is going to make it a little bit thicker in one section as well. Okay, so once you're happy with the length of your brim, you can fasten off. I'm not joining it. Just pull that through. So now I'm also going to give this a measure for you just so we can stay on track with sizing. So if you measure the flared section, it measures about 14 1/4, and the actual brim is 2.75. So now I'm going to do the seamless join, because I don't like how the slip stitch join looks when we have a brim like this. Now you can see that you can slightly notice our join. It's not very noticeable, but it's still a little bit noticeable. So you could always work in a continuous round and not join at all. I just sometimes don't like how it finishes off, giving it a little bit of a hump. So I prefer to do the join, but I know some of you may prefer just working in the round. Use a stitch marker if you're doing that, just to keep track of your rounds. But it's really not that noticeable, so I prefer going with this method. And then to join it, you're going to put the yarn on your needle. You're going to go under both loops of the first stitch, and then come back and go through the back loop only of the last stitch. So it's just really making a faux stitch basically, so that it blends right in. And then you can weave in the tail without distorting those stitches. So I just like to push it all the way. You can see when you first pull it, it's going to pull this down, so you can just use your needle to make sure that's not distorted. And then you want to come back down in the opposite direction. I'm just going through different stitches because I don't want it to be too thick in one area. Okay, and then you can trim your tail. Also add a personalized garment tag if you want. You don't have to add a tag. I'm going to add it to some of mine, and then this one I'm going to leave without a tag. That's really optional. And also here for the smaller sizes, you can add a tie. I know my granddaughter, she's just over a year now. She does not want to keep a hat on her head at all. So having the tie is just going to secure the hat on their head. You really don't want their little faces or noses getting sunburnt. So this is a really simple little I-cord, and I'm going to show you how to attach one onto this hat. So what I like is to have my seam at the back, and then with the hat folded like this, you just want to attach to the sides. So you're just evenly spacing out basically your ties, but we're doing it to the inside of the hat. So you can just fold that up. So I just counted to see, so I have 7 clusters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So these spaces here are going to be the center. So what you're going to do is pull off around a tail that's about 60 inches. And there's enough yarn left over with both of our baby or our smaller sizes that it won't be an issue having leftover yarn for those sizes. So you can just join into this space, really wherever. And then we're going to do an I-cord. So to do the I-cord, it's actually really simple. It's always one of those things that's easier to show you than write out. So I'm going to take my tail, I'm going to drape it over my hook so that I have 2 loops on the hook. Then I'm going to yarn over and pull through the 2 loops. Okay, so we're going to take our tail, drape it over our hook so it looks like we have the 2 loops there, and then yarn over and pull through. So you can count or just go through what you have with your tail, but I'm going to count so you have an idea of how many stitches you're going to make. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I went with 90, and I think that that is long enough. You don't want that it's too long, but long enough that you can tie and make a little bow. Okay, so once you finish, you just want to cut it. You can pull your tail through, and I just like to knot it. And I like to knot it well, so I'm gonna knot it 3 times. It's nice and secure, and then I can just trim. And now I'll do the same thing to the other side. And I use the 5mm for doing the ties. So then basically you're gonna put the little hat on, and you can just tie under their chin, maybe a little over to the side. So you can keep the little hat on there. Thanks so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and tap the bell to stay updated on all my new videos and tutorials. Make sure to check the description box below this video for all the links. Thanks so much, guys. Have an awesome day.